What's up, guys? I'm Ryan with Ryan Epps Fishing. Now, on today's video, we got the boat back out on the water. We have headed south. We're down in Georgia today. We're out here chasing down some spotted bass. We're gonna be throwing around some big baits, trying to get a big largemouth. So it is gonna be a good time. Y'all sit back, relax. I hope y'all enjoyed today's video.
Yeah, it's a honor. It's a big one too.
Got no friends. I'm kind of proud. Look how he ate that food. You can't go that far. Oh yeah, here they come. They're gonna eat it. You're welcome. You're welcome.
I thought you were kidding. I thought you were kidding.
You're welcome. First spot of the day. There's some over here. Hell, they're all over the place. And it might be profile. That topwater bait's so small, we might have to go to like a Sweet Junior. Better? You found it? I heard him up a little bit better. Spitting up there. That's a better one. Oh, got a black hook. There we go. Dude, that's solid 2.5 minutes. Yeah, here. But look.
Watch this. Every time, I've noticed this too. Every time a boat comes by,
Pushes them up.
and pushing them waves in here, it pushes them up.
Got him up there. Oh, they're doing it again.
Where's the pliers? Where's the pliers?
Got one, hang on. I don't know. Can't keep up with my stuff. It's a little better.
Oh, God. Big one?
No, it's just feisty and fat.
We're figuring it out.
I just put mine last night. I just need to get a start.
Come on.
That's a better one.
There's more up there with you.
Yeah, I'm trying. That's a better one. Let me help you.
That's a big one.
100%. Do you want help? Let me help you. Oh my, that's a 4.
Huh?
That's a 4.
Huh? There we go.
Got it. Holy cow.
Did you really?
Yes. I had already thrown at him. So it's got a walking bait thing. I'd already thrown at them fish up there shallow. Is that where you're at?
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
God, look at him going up there.
Yep.
BB.
Oh, yes, sir.
I'm talking a stud. Giant. 7? 7.
8. It's bigger than the one I remember at Chick. He's going to have to go 7.5 BPV.
He's big.
We're
I
close.
don't know if he's gonna hit 8.
Be close.
7.06.
7.06.
I've done put you on a 7-pounder.
I've caught the most fish and the biggest.
I take you to all my best spots. You've caught the biggest, you've not caught the most.
I think I have.
Negative. Negative.
I feel pretty confident I have.
I'm certain you have not. Which overrides confidence.
I don't know how many I caught. 5.
About 2.
5. 6. I mean, you caught
13.
I didn't realize we were going to lie. You know,
I only lie when I'm telling the truth. All right. So they will eat the swimbait. There's a brush pile over here that you can't see. Those fish are just kind of wandering around. They're not real active. They're curious, but they're not active. Hybrid. Yep. That is a hybrid. Pretty decent one too. Look at that trolling motor back here. We go. That might be a better fish right there. Yep. Yep, that's a better fish. What a football. There we go. I like it. We may have figured a little something out here. All right, guys, let's talk about what worked today. Now, the deal about the lake that we were on today, it's full of spotted bass. Now, when we talk about spotted bass, a lot of the people that are from Tennessee, eastern Tennessee, where I'm from, we have a lot of Kentucky spots. What they have down in these lakes in North Carolina and Georgia, they have Alabama spots. All right, they look identical, but they've kind of the Alabama spots have kind of taken over a lot of those lakes down there. And every now and then we'll make a trip down there, and just to do something different. A lot of those lakes are herring lakes. They got blueback herring in them, and it just gives you a lot different experience. It gives you a different challenge than what we've got back home. It's a totally different style of fishing. A lot of the stuff kind of relates to the highland reservoirs that we fish at home, but you have the whole dynamic of the herring and the way the spotted bass act and the brush pile deals and all that. It's just a different deal as we're getting pummeled by the waves out here on Douglas today. Anyway, there's quite a bit of topwater activity in the morning, especially the first morning that we were out there. Those herring had pulled up as soon as the sun came up. The herring came up to the surface. There was quite a bit of topwater activity. Now, the thing was, it took us quite a while to figure that topwater bite out. And you know, you would think, you know, you got fish busting all over the place, and it would be drop dead simple. But what we found out is these fish are pretty dialed in to what they're wanting, the speed that they're wanting it presented to them. And it took us quite a while to get dialed in, you know, to figure out what we could do to get them to eat. We had the topwater deal in the morning, and then we kind of carried that throughout the day. So what you saw initially in the morning is we just had roaming fish. These blueback herring had pushed into an area, and into several areas that we had stopped at. And you just had a whole lot of wolf packs of spotted bass. and hybrids, chasing those herring around. And that can be somewhat difficult. I mean, it's makes life a lot easier when you got forward-facing sonar, you got live scope. You can kind of stay on top of those fish. If you didn't have that, it would be pretty hard unless you saw them schooling to know what direction they're heading, and you know, it'd be a lot more of a guessing game. But we were able to follow those fish around, and we caught a few of them. But when they're not holding on something, they're not holding on a brush pile, they're not holding on a rock pile or something, they're just out there in the open chasing herring out over deep water. That can be a tricky deal if that's not something that you're used to doing. Once that bite kind of died down, I would say about 10 o'clock or so, that bite started to settle down. At that point in time, we started going out and graphing, and we started finding some brush piles. And we found several brush piles that had fish in them. Now, for those of you all that aren't familiar with that area, a topwater over top of brush piles is a big deal on those lakes. A lot of times those spotted bass, it's unreal how deep they will come to get a topwater lure. Those brush piles, a lot of times, the best way to get those fish out of those brush piles is to throw a topwater over top of them. Now, some of these brush piles are 15, 18, 20 foot down, and you can still call those fish up on a topwater lure if you got the right topwater lure and it's what they're wanting. And that again, that took us a while to figure that out throughout the day. But once you've got it dialed in, especially if, you know, we got to the point to where we knew where these brush piles were, and you can sit off of them, look at them with forward-facing sonar, and especially if you can see those fish sitting on suspended over the top of those brush piles, it was almost a guarantee you could call those fish up. Now, once you pulled them off the brush pile, it was a different story. You know, you may be able to throw back over there and call them up a second time. Most of the time, it seemed like those fish, once we called them up, it was kind of a done deal until you backed off of them and let them set back up on that brush. Now, as far as top waters, what we were doing, like I say, it took us a while to get dialed into this. We started out throwing your traditional top waters, your full-size spooks, vixens, that kind of deal, full size, and we weren't getting any bites on that. Ended up switching over to I ain't got it in the boat, a clear I'm a skimmer. Started getting a little bit more interest in that, and then ended up, this little bait right here, this is a Jackall riser. All right, this is a wake bait. It's a very small wake bait, and it's a very finesse topwater bait. All right, this bait actually sinks, so when you throw this out, you got to hold your rod tip up. And a lot of times what I've been throwing this on has been on a spinning setup, and on a slow retrieve, it'll just V across the surface. All right, you're reeling it real slow, and that's initially what we were getting them to eat. We caught a few fish doing that. I think at the same time, Jesse was getting some interest on a Jackall Mikey. This is a Mikey Junior, but it's another wake bait. It's another good one. I believe he caught a couple fish on that. But the main player, once we kind of figured out the smaller profile deal, was really what they were keying in on. It wasn't so much the wake in action, it was just the smaller profile. At that point, I was able to switch over from the full-size Jackall kick knocker to the kick knocker pup, and at that point it was just, you know, lights out with the kick knocker pup. That was the profile and everything that they were looking for, and we started to be able to call those fish up with a lot more consistency after I went to that. I think we actually caught a fish on a whopper plopper too, one of the small ones, the 90s. But it was definitely a profile deal. They were looking for that small profile, and we're gonna be back in this creek before this is all said and done. This video, you saw me throw my top water on two different setups. These setups are very similar. The one that I'm throwing the most now, just because it's a newer setup for me, this is a FX Extreme Angler Series. This is a 7-foot, medium heavy, moderate fast. The other setup is a Duckett Micro Magic Pro. It's a 7-foot medium heavy as well. As far as backbone, they're both pretty moderate rods. I would say the FX has just a slightly a bit more backbone to it, but not much. Currently right now, this is probably my go-to Topwater rod, and I've used the Micro Magic Pro, that 7-foot medium heavy. I've used it for years now, and it wouldn't bother me to keep using it. I just happened to pick up a few of the FX rods, and this one right here out of that lineup has been my go-to Topwater rod. I've been very, very happy with this rod right here. So that's the one that I've been using for the most part. But both good rods, and they will do just fine throwing your walking style baits. And I would even throw this Mikey on it. But like I said, for the riser, we're throwing it on a spinning rod setup. The spinning rod setup that I was throwing it on, that's another FX Extreme Angler Series. That's a 7-foot medium fast. And it works really well for that riser bait too. Now, on the other side, now that's the rod that you all saw me throw the riser bait on in the video. But I will show you an even better option for throwing that bait. I have since started messing around with it on this rod right here, and I think this is really the rod to throw that bait on. This is a Dobyns Champion. This is a 732. It's a lot more moderate rod, okay, than the FX Extreme Angler. You know, since it's a lot more moderate rod, you can really flip that light bait out there. You can bomb that little bait. This bait doesn't hardly weigh anything. Now, one thing about it is they have weighted it so it sinks, and I think part of that is just so you can cast it. This is a very small bait, and without that weight that they've added to it, you wouldn't be able to throw this bait very far. But on this really moderate Champion 732, you could sling that sucker out there. And then these little tiny treble hooks, they are very small, so that extra moderate action on the 732 will help you keep those fish pinned over the FX. But I didn't have a problem throwing it on the FX rod. You can just get a little more casting distance out of it on the 732. So that was that. Now, in terms of the line that I'm throwing this stuff on a Swimbait, you got 8-pound fluorocarbon. On the Jackall riser, 8-pound fluorocarbon. It would be better if you threw this on mono. Now on the 732, I've been playing around throwing it on braid. That works as well, straight up 10-pound braid. You can really launch that. You can really launch that little bait right there on 10-pound braid. As far as the Mikey goes, throwing it on 40 to 65-pound braid, whatever you prefer there. I've got my other rod spooled up with 40-pound braid. This rod right here is spooled up with 65. I would say 65 is kind of my my preferred topwater braid. I don't know. I feel like even though you may lose just a hair of casting distance on the bigger braid, I feel like the 65 over the 40, the 65 doesn't pull down into itself into the spool as much as the 40 does. So I do a little bit better with the 65-pound braid as far as just you know, because everybody with the braid, you'll end up making a bomb cast and it wads up in itself. And braid, when it wads up and it backlashes, it creates a holy shit storm of a mess in your reel. And you don't want it. And so for that reason, a lot of times I used to throw 40, period. That's what I throw on my top waters. I've started playing around with the 65 this year, and I think I'm probably just going to go to 65 period on everything top water wise that I throw on that rod. It seemed to work out a little bit better. Same deal on the small kick knocker pup, 65-pound braid. You had those fish, there were several spots there where you had the fish that were on the brush piles. That's what they were doing. They were relating to the brush piles. They were coming out from the brush piles. They were ambushing bait. That's what they were doing. If you got off the brush piles, all right, a lot of these brush piles were on points, humps, and if you got off of them, and you started looking around the sides of the point, the sides of the humps and stuff, you would start to see out there a little deeper some of these wolf packs of roaming spots out there. All right, now the second morning that I was out there, I wasn't having a whole lot of success being able to call those fish up. He couldn't drop shot them out of those brush piles. Those fish were just totally inactive. Now I don't know, I don't really know the reasoning for that. There was a little bit of a cold front before the next morning that I had went out there. So I don't know if that played into it, but there was a lot less topwater activity the second morning that I was out there than the first morning that you saw me out there with Jesse. And what I ended up having to do to catch my fish that second morning was I ended up having to just forget about those brush piles, get off those brush piles, slide out there a little bit deeper with the live scope, and just start panning around off the sides of the points, the sides of the humps, and looking for those small 5 to 8 packs, wolf packs of spotted bass. The depth varied. Some of them were in 20, some were in 30. I even pulled one out of 50. But that's what I was targeting. So you saw me get off that, and I would just start panning around, and when I would see a wolf pack of those fish, I would cast out there to it. And what I was doing there was just taking a 3.3 inch Keitech. That wasn't the color I was using. I was using electric shad, and I was also using blackback shad. But just a pretty normal color, something that imitates a herring. I was putting that on a 1/4 ounce ball head, and just watching it on live scope, casting out there, and just letting that bait pendulum down through those wolf packs. And that was how I was able to catch them most consistently that second morning. The big bait deal is not something that you all have seen me do very much on this channel. It's something that I have been doing for a while now. I would say we've been throwing big baits for probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years now, off and on. It's not something that I am good enough at yet that I feel like I have any business talking about, or certainly giving y'all any pointers on, but it's certainly something that I've added to my arsenal. We've had success with it. We've caught some fish. We've caught some good fish. Having said all that, the big fish that you saw us catch that came on a big bait, that was something that we had intended to do, go into that specific lake. We know that there's some big largemouth in that lake. There's a lot of spotted bass, but there's still some big largemouth left in that lake. And I knew from a trip that I had made there last year, there was a certain section of bank, and it was a pretty unique section of bank, really, but just because the amount of down timber that it had on it. It had a lot of laydowns on it, but the unique thing about it was almost a vertical drop right there, but it was back in a creek. And there was a little bit of bait around that area. And this time last year when we were up there, I had some decent followers come out of those laydowns on those trees, and that was something that I wanted to take a look at and hit at some point throughout the day. And we tied on the big baits and went out there during one of those lulls, and Jesse was able to put a really nice one in the boat. Yeah, that's what it is. I caught some fish, didn't tear nothing up, heading home happy. That's all you can ask for. So that is all I got for y'all today, guys. If you like the videos, make sure you go hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. It's going to let you all know when I put out all my new videos. If you got any questions or comments, feel free to leave those in the comment section down below. I will get back to y'all with any answers I can give you. Until next time, y'all make some time. Get out there on the water and catch you a few. I'm Ryan Epps. Y'all have a good one.